Hello again. I'm going to continue talking about the tools we're going to use in our creative financing class. And this is number 3, and it's called Lease Options. And this is a big subject with a lot of different fun varieties that we can discuss, but I'd really like to sink in the first big concept is that to make money in real estate, or to live in real estate, or to get any of the benefits of real estate, you don't have to own it. And that's just an assumption a lot of people make, is that you have to go out and buy it and go out and get into a lot of debt and borrow money to be able to benefit from real estate. But what a lot of people know who've been in the business for a long time and who are deal makers and creative financing experts is that you can control real estate without owning it. And this is something that even Rockefeller was coined as quoting back in the day. One of the wealthiest people in the world at his time was that he control everything, own nothing. And so you can use all sorts of different instruments in business to do that. And in real estate, one of my favorites is using leases, and also in combination at times with options. And the lease is the part I hope you're probably familiar with. If you've leased a house before or leased an apartment, lease is what gives you possession of the property. And if you put it together correctly, you can also control the income for the property. So you can have the right to sublease a property. So you can lease the property from an owner and then have the right to sublease it to a tenant, to a different tenant, and you can be in the middle like a sandwich, and you can sublease and make a difference between what you're leasing it to that person, to the owner, and what you sublease it to your tenant. And so that's a basic concept of leases. I'll give you an example in a second. And then options is a contract that allows you to control the price of the property. And so you have an option to purchase it. You're not actually purchasing it yet, but you give something to the seller or to the owner of the property for the right to buy it during a certain period of time. And that period of time can vary and depends on your negotiations. But so in essence, you're controlling the income on the property and you're controlling the price of the property. And let me just show you an example. There are so many different ways and creative ways you can put leases and options together, and I'll give you case studies of some that I have done. But in this example, this might make it seem more real. There's an owner who's an unhappy owner this time, and this owner owns a quadruplex. It's a rental property that he bought. He lives out of town, and he thought he could manage it and come in town and manage it, and it's just not been like he thought it would be, watching the late night infomercials. And this with his busy life and the things that are going on, he has 2 vacant units, and the last tenants didn't pay him, and he had to evict them, and he just really hasn't had the heart to go back and do the work to get those things back ready and put more tenants who he might have to deal with. And so he's just left it vacant for about a year, and he's had the other 2 tenants paying, and so it just hasn't been a big enough negative for him to completely go out, to figure out how to sell it. And so there's an entrepreneur who came along and noticed that those 2 units were vacant and did some research, contacted that owner and said, I'd be interested in helping you out with your problem. And I'm a local entrepreneur, and I manage properties, or I'm interested in managing more properties or buying more properties. And can I take a look at it? And so after negotiating and talking about it for a while, the entrepreneur, who didn't have a lot of money, this is a new entrepreneur, had a limited cash in the bank, but did have a lot of time and energy, and had some know-how, had learned about some different tools in a creative financing class, and realized that you could use tools to control without ownership, and while still helping the owner get out of a jam, get out of a problem. And so here's what they came up with. They decided that this entrepreneur would lease the property and would also have an option to buy the property. But let's talk about just the lease by itself, because these could be 2 separate documents. And so what this entrepreneur noticed is when they looked at the property, there were 2 units that rented for $500 a piece, and then the other 2 units were vacant. And so this owner, in his situation, was not getting any income from the other 2. And so the entrepreneur said, what if I gave you the exact same rent you're getting right now, $1,000 per month, and then I'll spend my own time, energy, effort, money to get those other units back ready to rent, but you'll do none of the work, none of the management, but I will pay you for 5 years $1,000 per month, starting 60 days from now, after I have some time to fix them up and get them ready. So here's the lease. The essence of the lease is $1,000 per month coming from the entrepreneur starting 60 days from now, and the owner is going to give this entrepreneur in the lease control or possession of the property. So he has the right to go into the properties, and there's certain bundles of rights that come with that. And he also has the right in his lease to sublease the property. And he also has some responsibilities, some limited responsibilities. The owner is still going to pay for taxes and insurance, and in this case, the owner is still going to pay for any big capital kind of items, like if the roof needs to be replaced or the heating and airs have to be replaced, and they can define what those are, those big ticket items. But the owner does have to do ordinary maintenance, cut the grass, has to deal with any kind of maintenance problems that come up, small plumbing problems, and they define what those are. But in any case, there are certain responsibilities that this entrepreneur has and certain rights, so the right to sublease it. And so what the entrepreneur is giving is the $1,000 per month. That's the lease. And so that's one part of it. Now look how this works. So this entrepreneur let's say he spends $5,000, maybe put some sweat equity in it as well, but they spends $5,000 to paint it and get some new flooring in and just kind of dress them up. They were really neglected. And so then after doing that, he then advertises it, gets the units on Craigslist and puts signs out, and leases the other 2 units for $500 as well. And so there's now $500, $500, $500, $500. So $2,000 per month coming in. He has an obligation to the landlord of $1,000, and so he keeps the difference, $1,000 per month. And how much did he invest? $5,000 to get it fixed up. Now there are some other obligations. Remember, if the house goes vacant, he has to pay $1,000 per month to the landlord. It's possible it will go vacant over the next couple of years, so he has some vacancy reserve he needs to set aside, and there's some maintenance that he's obligated to do. But even with using some figures that would be likely there, he might net about $600 per month after doing that work, after putting $5,000 in. So after 10 months, or a little bit less than 10 months, 8 months, he will have his money back. So 600 times 10 would be 6,000. So and times 8 would be 40. So just between 9 and 10 months, he would get his money back. $600 over 10 months would be 6,000. So the point is, the amount of money he's investing up front, less than a year, he's going to get his money back. That is just by itself, the lease. He's got another 4 years to earn profits on that return that he put up front. So that's a really good investment of his time and energy. And for a person who's just starting the business, is just a good relationship. You're solving problems, and each of them is benefiting. But that's not the only thing the entrepreneur was able to do. So you also had this owner who agreed to give the entrepreneur an option to buy the property. Now let's say that the full value, if this thing was full, it would probably be worth $160,000, just hypothetically. And because the seller was pretty motivated and knew there was some work to be done, he was able to negotiate a price of $120,000. And so he had an option to buy the property. He has not bought it yet. The option means at some point in the future he has to give notice to the owner, and he's going to say, "I'm ready to exercise my option. I have the $120,000. I'd like to buy the property." So he has that option starting from day one in this case, all the way through 5 years. So he has a 5-year window to buy it. He doesn't have to buy it. It's at his option. And if he doesn't buy it, it's worth saying, if he does not buy it, he loses whatever he put down in the first place. And in this case, it was $5,000 in repairs. He negotiated that his $5,000 would be consideration for the owner giving him an option. So if at the end of 5 years he didn't want to buy it, what happens? He walks away, the property reverts back to the owner, and the entrepreneur can walk away. And if he made some money on the lease, that's great. And both parties might be happy in that case. But this is much different than borrowing the money. And here's one of the big points about options. He's using leverage. He's only putting a little bit of money down, and he's controlling the income on the property, and he's controlling $40,000 worth of equity on this property with $5,000 of his own money and very little risk on the back end. Because if he had borrowed $120,000, he'd have to pay that back in 5 years or whenever the loan was due. This is a much different animal. And so options, if you really let that sink in and think about it, you're taking a lot less risk using options, but you're getting the benefit of leverage using the option in the lease. So lots of fun there, and I want you to think about, again, just summarizing on this particular example, what did this entrepreneur profit after 5 years? If he had $600 per month times 60 months, that's $36,000 over a 5-year period. And let's say at the end of the 5 years he sold it for $160,000 to another investor. He would make another $40,000, and so he had a $76,000 profit before taxes from a $5,000 investment plus some time and energy for managing the property. And so it's not a make-believe kind of number. There are deals out there, and the amazing thing is that so many people focus on the traditional way of doing deals that they all but miss the more creative ways that can still solve somebody's problem. You got to know how to do them. You got to know how to put them together. You got to know that they're available, and to be able to make these kind of deals happen. And that's really the point of this course, is to help teach you the tools so that you can go out and make these kind of deals happen. And there is an endless variety of lease option uses and ways to put these together, both with multi-units like this, and I've done deals with single family houses with all sorts of different kinds of owners. But I want you to think about that concept. This is just an introduction to it, and we'll have some more case studies to show you how to use lease options a lot more. See you soon.